Einen wunderschönen guten Morgen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Ich freue mich, Sie heute zum 7. INiTS SCALEup Talk begrüßen zu dürfen. Mein Name ist Markus Pietzka, ich bin ein Berater hier bei INiTS. Und für alle jene, die INiTS noch nicht so gut kennen, würde ich gerne jetzt ganz kurz INiTS vorstellen. INiTS ist der Wiener Hochtechnologie-Inkubator. Wir wurden 2002 von der Stadt Wien, von der Technischen Universität Wien und von der Universität Wien gegründet, mit dem Auftrag und der Aufgabe, technologiebasierte Unternehmensgründungen zu unterstützen. Wir machen das mit 3 Programmen. Das erste Programm ist ein Technologiemarktplatz, wo wir Gründern und Gründerinnen, die auf der Suche nach einer technologiebasierten Geschäftsidee sind, Spitzentechnologie vorstellen. Das zweite Programm ist sozusagen unser Kernstück und das, was wir auch am längsten schon machen und auch schon vielfach ausgezeichnet wurde. Das ist A+B SCALEup, wie gesagt, unser Inkubationsprogramm. Da geht es darum, das entwickelte oder Geschäftsmodelle zu entwickeln und diese Geschäftsmodelle dann auch zu validieren. Die Annahmen, die hinter diesem Geschäftsmodell stehen, mit Kunden, Investoren, Lieferanten zu validieren. Sie bekommen da dann auch Zutritt und Intros in unser breites Mentorennetzwerk und Firmennetzwerk. Und das dritte Programm, das wir haben, ist das Programm Start Kapital. Das ist unser Finanzierungsmodell. Hier beteiligen wir uns mit bis zu 100.000 € an den Startups und wir sind hier meistens der erste Investor, der Ihrem Unternehmen hier Vertrauen und vor allem auch Geld zur Seite stellt. Soweit, so gut, das ist INiTS. Heute, wie gesagt, haben wir den 7. INiTS SCALEup Talk mit einer sehr spannenden Frau, mit Frau Sanja Selak. Sie ist die Gründerin und Geschäftsführerin der Origimm Biotechnology. Das Unternehmen Origimm entwickelt Produkte zur Prävention bzw. zur Therapie von Hauterkrankungen. Mehr dazu werden wir gleich von Sanja erfahren. Das Interview selbst wird auf Englisch erfolgen. Das heißt, wie es auch immer üblich ist, wir werden ungefähr 15 Minuten ein Interview mit Frau Selak zwischen ihr und mir führen und dann die restlichen 15 Minuten sind dann für Ihre Fragen da. Diese Fragen, bitte, das haben Sie auch schon am Eingang gesehen, bitten wir Sie in den Chat hineinzustellen. Sie können das auf Deutsch oder auf Englisch tun. Die Fragen werden dann von meinem Kollegen Michael Henle gesammelt und strukturiert an Frau Selak gestellt. Ganz zum Ende noch die Bitte, bitte lassen Sie Ihre Videos und Mikrofone ausgeschalten. Well, then let's switch to English. Good morning, Sanja.
Good morning, Markus.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for your time and willingness to share your experiences with us. When you began to think about starting your own business, you already had a lot of experience from academia and from the industry. What was the initial business idea and why did you approach INiTS?
Wow, there's a lot of questions, a lot of things to explain, but I try to highlight the most important things. First of all, as any entrepreneur, I identify a market opportunity that I thought was not well met. And I also identify the opportunity to improve certain things in the way that the products are discovered in this industry. So my first idea was I wanted to have type of products that would help double effect, not only improving the physical health, but also supporting people's, so to say, feelings or mental health, if you say so, in terms of how the disease affects them. So we may think that the skin diseases are maybe not as dramatic as some other life-threatening diseases like cancer. However, in terms of effect on the quality of life, they are just as important, if not even more important when it comes to mental health. And actually, the suicide rate and depression rate in this group of patients is much higher than in some other, even much more severe diseases. Because they feel constantly judged by others, they have difficulty developing social interactions, especially if the skin disease is very prominently seen on the outside, affecting the face, for example, or other exposed areas, and especially if it happens during the more sensitive developmental stage. As it happens in puberty, a lot of people are still developing their sense of self and who they are and how they are seen by others. And when they are not able to show their best self also on the outside, it has very significant consequences or impact on them. And a lot of teenagers have problems with insecurity to start with. And on top of that, if they have to deal with constant judgment or even teasing or bullying, as it happens very often in schools, then it's very difficult for them. And you can see on our website, we have posted extracts from some of the letters we are receiving from these type of patients, or from the adults who have kind of explained how it affected them in these early formative stages. And sometimes we receive like letters 10, 20 pages long. You can write a whole book on them, how impactful it is for them. So in addition to that, I also wanted to develop a highly innovative learning organization, because we cannot develop a company without at the same time developing ourselves, as it has a lot of impact on not only developing professional competence, but also developing us as humans, as people able to deal with challenges, uncertainties, and so on, which are part of the business. And in addition to that, I also wanted to, so to say, reinvent vaccines for personal care, because a lot of people have negative perceptions about them, not understanding exactly how they work. And if they are used only in the preventive setting, then it's more difficult to assign a real benefit to them, versus when there are conditions in which they could be used to prevent the disease that has already started, or reduce the symptoms to significant level, then they could provide the benefit which is immediately obvious and visible. How I came to INiTS? Well, in the beginning, I must say it was very difficult the way I started, because typically companies are started either within the umbrella of an academia organization, where people get support and start off with their projects in the lab and help of their supervisor and colleagues. And when they bring some early proof of concept, then they start looking for some additional grants to support this work, for some first investors. And only when they feel, okay, now it's time to call it a company, they found a company. It's also difficult, it's not easy, but it's even more difficult starting without that support. And we also weren't a spin-off of the industry. So some other way to start the company is make a spin-off of a larger company, where then again, the founders get lots of support and in knowledge and some initial funds. I didn't have that either. So I really was just, it was just me and my ideas. So I had to look for how to start. And in addition, starting as a scientist who didn't really previously found a biotech company, it was very difficult because I needed to very quickly learn a lot of business skills in lots of different areas which were important from all different business sides. So INiTS really provided this like a springboard for all other things that happened afterwards. So they put me through this entrepreneurs boot camp, if you call it, where we had very quickly to learn a lot of different concepts and in these early stages learn how to write business plan, how to do proper evaluation of market positioning, how to prepare first pitch for the investors, and all these other ins and outs that are needed for it. They also provided the network and additional knowledge. So if I had additional questions which I could not find the answers on my own, they knew who had the answer, or they would connect me with that person, or they would provide answers if they knew it. And even in terms of finances, although in biotech we need huge sums, it's not easy to start a company with a few thousand, but still INiTS provided the very first financial support, a small grant, which later led to my ability to raise additional funds because they also took me into their incubator. So for the first year, I was benefiting from the free consultancy and so on. So all of this helped me then better prepare and raise additional funds when I was more ready than when I was really at the beginning.
I would like to highlight another aspect in your path. When we thought about the title for today's talk, we eventually came up with from musician to scientist to entrepreneur. And my question would be, which role did and does play music in your career path? Because you're a trained pianist, and I think this is something special about you.
Interesting question. I must say, not only music, but also other types of side interests, hobbies, whether it's sport, music, or some other activity, definitely prepares one better than having fewer experiences for any kind of challenging career. So in my case, it was music. And what I found very helpful in starting and running business that comes from this creative field is that not only this side of the creativity that is very helpful, because when we are thinking about innovating and trying something new, it's very similar to composing, creating a new music piece. Or thinking of a new melodies and so on, because you have to constantly look which patterns combine the best and give then the outcome in terms of the big picture. But what is also extremely helpful, for example, the ability to focus, because I spent many years playing in front of others in various music competitions. I gave my own solo concerts. I was on the stage alone. And it can be terrifying when you go out there, expose yourself, and others are listening and watching for every small mistakes that you may make. And if you lose your concentration, it's very easy to make a very bad impression in the concert experience. So I learned how to be able to focus and not let things that are happening distract me from the objective, from the goal. And this is also very helpful in business. There will be always something that happens, like some small fires that need to be extinguished, some surprises, some changes, some problems for whatever reason. And if we let ourselves get distracted by it, then we will lose the focus and the whole business will suffer because of it. So I learned not to lose my focus, to really think what is really important, give it the maximum attention, and everything else deal as it comes, but not let it completely distract me or discourage me in any way. What also helped was knowing when to speed up, when to slow down, how to create the right environment and atmosphere for what needed to happen, because as a musician, you need to be able to create an experience, not just play like a machine, but really get others involved and others understand the music. And this is also important in the business, especially in the positions of leadership. When we are dealing with lots of people inside and outside, they need to understand how we think and what we want to achieve to be able to help us also or to be part of it. And in addition, it helped me also because I was a music teacher as well. So I had my own music studio, especially when I lived in Canada. So there I learned how to interact with people as customers as well. And because I had to deal with parents and they had different expectations, and students who were much practicing more, working more, or more talented, interested, as well as those who were just wanting to have fun. So I had to find ways how to deal with different personalities, different expectations, and still try to, how they say, make music fun for everyone.
I would like to take the opportunity and ask Michael whether there are already any reactions from the audience. Michael, can you hear me?
Well, good morning, Sanja, first of all, and good morning to our audience. We do have first questions from the audience. Well, I start with a short one. What is your USP compared to other product and therapies?
The very key part of it is that we are developing products which are not working only on the symptoms, but really going after the cause of the disease, especially in the skin treatment industry. The majority of the products which are on the market are treating one part in the signaling pathway of the immune response, typically inhibiting cytokine or some other signaling molecule, but they're not really asking what is causing this sequence to even start at the beginning. And we are focusing on that because we believe that addressing this the first step that tells the immune system whether it should react in this or that way is the most important. And this is where our focus lies.
Okay, thank you. There is already another one. What is the status of your company now? What were unexpected turns on the way, and how did you actually deal with it?
There were lots of unexpected turns. If anybody thinks business is a linear thing, and especially starting a company at the same time making a completely new product, I can tell you twists and turns are part of my life.
So there was more than one, I guess.
Yeah, many. I don't know, like I could talk for ages and write my own book someday, maybe about all of them. But there are lots of things that you assume would be certain way, they turned out the other way, and anywhere from science to business side to just running the company from the team, from the I don't know, from every side. But I must say, I really feel that every challenge just made me stronger and more determined. So I'm not afraid of many more that may come. Where we are standing now, we are preparing our very first big study, which is going to be a not typical phase 1 study because it will include immediately patients. We have had just a very successful meeting with regulatory authorities who are responsible for approving all pharmaceutical and vaccine-based products in Europe. And we have passed with flying colors, and not only they allow us to test the product, but even to go and test it in the patients right away because they see the potential and they see that it would be very important to generate this data there and learn more about the product potential, which I believe is significant. So we are now in a very heavy preparations and doing very final tests. Manufacturing phase is almost over, so the product will be ready in the fall. And in the next year, we will start enrolling first patients in the study. So by the end of this year, we're all very busy writing all kinds of documentation that's necessary for various purposes of the clinical trial.
Okay, thank you. We have several more questions. There's one which is coming from a completely different direction. You said that you have been living in, or you lived in Canada, and what would you say is the culture difference to Austria?
I could also talk about that for a long time, but let's say I found it interesting. When I lived in Europe before, of course, culture was a lot of extent similar. Europeans are, in general, bit more open, bit more having this leisure attitude, like scrolling through the streets, and you just sit and have a coffee somewhere. And if you don't like something, we say it, we discuss it. And we are, I think, making friends is a process that proceeds also faster, so to say. In Canada, people are having a bit larger personal space boundary, so to say. They're a bit slower to get to open up, to make connections. They're a bit more reserved about their lives, and they're extremely polite. There's even this joke that I think bears a lot of truth. They say, if you want to test if the person is a Canadian, step on his foot, and if he still says, I'm sorry, he's a Canadian. And this is really true.
Did you try that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really interesting because I didn't realize how much of this culture I absorbed by being there for very long, because when I came back to Europe, and especially when I came to Austria, and in these early stages of starting business, I was saying thank you for everything, and like being extra careful, you know, like when I was talking to somebody new I didn't know. And at some point I got advice from one of my colleagues, Sanja, you should really stop saying thank you for everything. You look like, you know, you're too naive or not strong enough or looks like artificial or something. And I'm like, but that's
Or everybody is thinking that you're Canadian, maybe.
like, that's how, you know, I was used to there. And then I had to change that, of course. Okay. The other thing which was also funny and interesting was people are very relaxed when it comes to how they dress there. So you can see a professor at the university or an entrepreneur CEO just in, you know, sports shoes and some funny t-shirt, and they're completely fine. And everybody respects them, doesn't matter how you appear on the outside. In Europe, we are still a bit bound to these norms. Are you wearing this or that clothes? How do you appear? So I got too relaxed when I was in Canada. So even though I started initially dressing up a bit more, they would ask me all the time, what are you celebrating today? What's going on? I'm like, I'm not celebrating anything. I'm just going to university, whatever. And when I came back to Europe, when I was doing my postdoc in Spain, my colleagues from the lab literally took me to the shopping center and said, you need new clothes. You need better shoes to match with your person. I was like, okay. So I think now I'm back to being more like in tune with European culture. But of course, we are all people. Underneath the skin, we are all humans. So I wouldn't say there's some big differences. It's just these like first perceptions, how we think about each other, that in the first couple of years, there's some shocks. But if you stay there long enough, you realize, yeah, we are just all humans. So there are different types of personalities there as well as here.
Well, thank you. There is another question which refers to your very interesting track record. The question is, could you tell us how you managed to become an entrepreneur while being a musician, as competitions and recitals mostly take a lot of time?
Yes, and this I must say, passion. You have to love what you're doing. If you say, I want to do this job and that, and you just do it because you think you should do it or it brings you something, but you don't have a real inner drive for that, it will be very difficult. I had times when I was literally working 20 hours a day and slept 4 hours only. And I was at the same time finishing my PhD, teaching 36 piano students, and on top of that, doing experiments in the laboratory. So my work in Canada taught me how to really work hard and how to move things forward. But then afterwards, I continue along the same route. And also when I was in Europe, I was juggling many things and doing all kinds of things in the music side as well, in the science. And later when I started with the company, building the company, I had to take care of business and science and lab and everything, and keep an eye on all kinds of things at the same time, which required lots of effort. So I would say, yeah, hard work and passion.
Okay. Another question is, oh, this is a tricky one. What is the best advice you have ever been given and would like to pass it to fellow entrepreneurs?
Of course, everybody has his own advices and tries to pass it. But I would say, I will give you one advice which I don't think anybody gave me, but you might have read in some places, or other entrepreneurs might have said it, but I have learned it, and I would like to share it from my experience. What I realized was that a lot of people focus on how good the business plan is. They focus on how quickly I can get some money or some investor, how quickly I can start, how does my website look like, do I need one, how soon should I, it's all these things. But what is really, really crucial and should not be underestimated and should be first taken care of, do I have the right team in place? I said I started alone, and I had to make lots of compromises along the way, because there was always, I realized, oh, I need more people. Oh, I need one more person. Oh, I need, somebody to join me for this and that. And I very quickly started to how to say, search. And for me, it was more important to get things done and go step by step than really ensure that I have the strong, really cohesive team that can really push things no matter what happens. Because when challenges come, it's almost like going into the war. You have your troops and you are supposed to conquer the top of this mountain. But then all kinds of scary things and challenges come. And maybe you then realize, well, we are working based on different principles, or we want different things, or we have different ideas, and we haven't discussed this in the beginning. And then it starts happening all kinds of things and that you have to deal with in addition to building a business. So if I would give an advice, I would say, don't rush into anything else. First, see who you can really long-term build a company and who will be there with you no matter what, and who will share your values, your reasons for why you want to have this company, your vision. And then even if it takes longer, it's like getting married. I mean, people rush into marriage and then they realize after 2 years they cannot work together. It's the same. Business is very similar, because you require really a high level trust, high level commitment, and at least aligning on some basic values. So this is one really important aspect. I would say, take care and think through very well, and make sure you discuss all sensitive issues, expectations right at the beginning, so there are no misunderstandings later on.
Well, thank you. I take it as a brilliant final statement, because I have to hand over the microphone virtually back.
Favorites. Thank you, Michael. Dear Sanja, unfortunately, as a timekeeper, I have to have an eye on my mobile. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your for sharing your experiences with us. I now will switch to German again. Ja, also ich möchte mich auch bei Ihnen herzlich bedanken, bei unseren Zuschauern. Ich darf jetzt an dieser Stelle noch zwei Dinge ankündigen. Und zwar das erste ist, wir haben in 2 Wochen wieder einen INiTS SCALEup Talk jetzt eingeblendet. Sehen Sie auch schon mit wem. Mit der Frau Isabel Klaus, Gründerin und Gesellschafterin der Firma Thinkers AI. Diesmal wird mein Kollege Michael Hähnle das Interview führen und ich werde im Hintergrund den Seifenstein machen. Und das Zweite, worauf ich Sie aufmerksam möchte, ist, unsere Homepage ist neu. Und Ich würde Sie wirklich sehr herzlich einladen, schauen Sie einmal auf diese Homepage drauf, ob und wie wir Ihnen helfen können, wie wir Sie unterstützen können. Wir freuen uns wirklich über jede Kontaktaufnahme. Sie finden dort unsere E-Mail-Adressen, unsere Telefonnummer auch. Also wenn Sie irgendeine Gründungsidee haben, bitte treten Sie in Kontakt mit uns. Wir schauen dann, wie wir Ihnen helfen können. In diesem Sinne möchte ich mich noch einmal bei allen bedanken. Ich wünsche Ihnen einen wunderschönen Donnerstag und eine schöne Restwoche. Wiederschauen. Danke.